Pregnant? How much do you want? Sneered the CEO. 8 years later, he saw her with twins, and he couldn't move. A powerful story for my loyal, greatest, and best family. Let's begin with love. Before we start, I just want one thing from you. Type present in the comments. Pregnant? How much do you want? Jason Snowden's voice cut through the penthouse silence like a blade dipped in ice. His eyes, those steel-gray eyes that had once looked at Rosabella with something she'd mistaken for love, now held nothing but contempt. Rosa stood frozen near the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city lights blurring behind her as the words registered. Her hand instinctively moved to her still flat stomach, protective, defensive. She'd rehearsed this conversation 100 times in her head during the past week, ever since the test came back positive. In none of those imagined scenarios had she prepared for this. "I'm not asking you for anything," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I came here to tell you because you have a right to know." Jason laughed, a harsh sound that made her flinch. He moved away from his desk, his tailored suit catching the ambient light, making him look like some untouchable figure from a different world, which she supposed he was, had always been. "Right to know," he repeated, his tone mocking. "That's rich. Tell me, Rosa, how long did it take you to plan this? 3 months of playing the sweet, genuine girlfriend. Was that the timeline you calculated would be believable?" Each word landed like a physical blow. Rosa felt something crack inside her chest, something that had been fragile to begin with. She'd known their worlds were different, him with his wealth and power, her with her 2 jobs and night classes. But she'd thought what they shared transcended all that. She'd thought he saw her. "You think I planned this?" Her voice rose despite her efforts to control it. "You think I trapped you?" "What else should I think?" Jason turned back to face her fully, his expression carved from stone. "You're not the first woman who's tried this approach. My family has dealt with this exact situation before. So let's skip the performance and get to the number. 50,000? 100? Name your price, and I'll have my attorney draw up the paperwork. You sign away any future claims, and we both move on with our lives." Rosa felt the room tilt. This man, this stranger wearing Jason's face, was offering her money like she was a problem to be solved, a transaction to be completed. The man who'd traced her face in the darkness and whispered that she was different, that she made him believe in something real, that man had never existed. "I don't want your money," she said quietly. "Everyone wants money. Don't insult my intelligence by pretending you're different. I am different." Or I thought. Her voice caught. She swallowed hard, forcing the grief back down. "I thought you knew that." Jason moved to his bar, poured himself whiskey with steady hands. "My father warned me about this. About women who see dollar signs instead of a person. I told him you were different too. Guess we were both wrong. Your father doesn't even know me. He doesn't need to. He's seen enough fortune hunters to recognize the pattern." Jason took a long drink. "You played your part well, I'll give you that. The independent act, refusing gifts, insisting on paying your own way. Classic misdirection before the big play." Rosa felt her hands trembling and clasped them together. She wanted to scream, to make him see how wrong he was. But looking at his face, closed, certain, unmovable, she realized the futility. He'd already decided who she was. Nothing she said would change that. "I need to sit down," she whispered, moving toward the leather couch. "Sit, stand, whatever you need to do." Jason's voice was dismissive. "But let's settle this tonight. I have an early meeting tomorrow, and I'd prefer to have this handled. Like she was an item on his agenda, something to be checked off and forgotten." Rosa sank onto the couch, her legs no longer trustworthy. She thought about the past 3 months, the late-night conversations, the way he'd held her like she was precious, the vulnerability he'd shown when talking about his mother's death. Had any of it been real? Or had she constructed an entire relationship in her imagination, seeing depth where there was only surface? "I'm keeping the baby," she said, looking up at him. "That's not negotiable." Jason's jaw tightened. "Then you're looking at a legal battle you can't afford? My attorneys will bury you in paperwork. Paternity tests, custody arrangements, supervised visitation. Is that really what you want? Or would you prefer to take the money, go live your life somewhere else, and raise this child without the complications? Complications, Rosa repeated numbly. Is that what you'd be? A complication in your own child's life? I'd be a father who didn't want to be one. Trust me, that's worse for the kid than no father at all. He set his glass down with a sharp click. Take the money, Rosa. It's more than generous. Start fresh somewhere. Give the child a good life. Everyone wins. Everyone except her baby, who would grow up wondering why their father didn't want them. Everyone except her, who would carry this betrayal like a scar. But as Rosa looked at Jason's implacable face, she understood something crucial. This man would destroy her if she stayed. He had the resources, the connections, the ruthlessness. He would make her life hell, and by extension, her child's life too. She stood up slowly, her decision crystallizing. You're right about one thing. This baby deserves better than a father who sees them as a complication. Something flickered across Jason's face, too quick for her to identify. So you'll take the money? No. Rosa moved toward the door, each step requiring monumental effort. I don't want anything from you. Not money, not lawyers, not your presence in our lives. You've made yourself clear. Consider this your free pass, Jason. You're off the hook completely. Wait, he took a step forward. If you're not taking the money, what exactly are you planning? Rosa turned back, her hand on the door handle. She looked at him one last time, memorizing this moment, the moment she learned that love without respect was worthless, that vulnerability could be weaponized, that she was stronger alone than with someone who saw her as the enemy. I'm planning to raise my child to be nothing like you, she said quietly. Goodbye, Jason. She walked out before he could respond, before he could see the tears beginning to fall, before her composure shattered completely. The elevator ride down felt endless, each floor a reminder of how far she'd fallen, how completely she'd misjudged everything. Outside, the night air hit her face, cold and sharp. Rosa wrapped her arms around herself, around the tiny life growing inside her, and made a promise. Her child would never feel unwanted, would never question their worth, would never stand in a penthouse being offered money like their existence was a problem to be solved. She walked away from the building, from Jason Snowden, from the life she'd imagined. Behind her, 40 floors up, a man stood at his window watching her disappear into the city, his hand pressed against the glass, his expression unreadable. Rosa didn't look back. She never would again. By sunrise, her apartment was packed. By noon, she was on a bus heading across the country, her savings in her pocket and her future uncertain. But as the city faded in the rearview mirror, Rosa felt something unexpected blooming beneath the grief. Freedom. Fierce, terrifying, absolute freedom. She would build a life from nothing. She would be enough for her child. She would prove that love didn't need wealth or status, or a father who saw them as currency. The bus rolled on through the dawn, carrying Rosa toward a future Jason Snowden would never see. Chapter 2. Parallel Lives. Rosa's hands ached as she scrubbed the diner counter, the third shift wearing on her like sandpaper against exhausted bones. The clock above the kitchen read 3 in the morning. In 4 hours, she'd clock out, walk 15 minutes to the daycare where she worked mornings, then somehow stay awake through afternoon classes. The pregnancy had started showing a month ago, her uniform growing tighter despite her careful budgeting that often meant skipping meals. The diner manager, a weathered woman named Betty, pretended not to notice. You look dead on your feet, girl, Betty said, refilling coffee stations. Take your break. Rosa wanted to refuse. Every minute not working felt like money slipping through her fingers, but her lower back screamed for relief. She lowered herself carefully onto the employee bench, her hand automatically moving to her swollen belly. Twins, the ultrasound technician had said last week. Her voice bright with congratulations Rosa didn't feel. 2 healthy girls. 2. The word had echoed in Rosa's mind ever since, equal parts terror and wonder. How would she afford two of everything? 2 cribs, 2 car seats, 2 futures? The math seemed impossible even with 3 jobs. But then they'd moved on the screen, tiny flickering heartbeats, and Rosa had fallen completely, irrevocably in love. Her daughters, her girls, she'd protect them with everything she had. You got people helping you? Betty asked, appearing with a sandwich Rosa hadn't ordered. Family? Just me. Rosa accepted the food gratefully. Her parents had passed when she was young. She'd grown up in foster care, always alone. Part of why Jason's betrayal cut so deep, she'd thought she'd finally found someone who'd stay. Betty nodded, asked nothing more. That was the thing about people who'd struggled. They recognized their own, helped without making it charity. Rosa finished the sandwich and returned to work, counting down minutes until her shift ended, until she could collapse for 90 minutes of sleep before the next job, the endless cycle that was her life now. Across the country, Jason Snowden woke in his penthouse to silence. He'd been dreaming about Rosa again, the same dream that had plagued him for months. Her walking away, his hand on the window, something vital slipping through his fingers. He always woke before seeing her face. Jason pushed himself out of bed, moved through his morning routine with mechanical precision. Shower, suit, coffee, briefing papers. His sister Lily had left 3 messages he hadn't returned. She'd heard about Rosa somehow, had questions Jason refused to answer. "You're being ridiculous," Lily had said the one time he'd picked up. "Whatever happened, talk to her. You're miserable." "I'm fine." "You're a terrible liar." But he'd hung up anyway, buried himself deeper in work, convinced that time would eventually erase Rosa from his system like a fever breaking. It didn't. His father called weekly, satisfied that Jason had handled the situation. Each conversation made Jason's stomach turn, though he couldn't articulate why. He'd done the right thing, protected himself from exploitation. So why did he feel hollow? "You need to start dating again," his father said during their weekly dinner. "The Henderson girl would be appropriate. Good family understands our world. I'm not interested in dating because you're hung up on that woman, the one who tried to trap you." His father's voice hardened. "I hope you've learned your lesson about mixing with the wrong sort." Jason said nothing, pushed his food around his plate. Rosa had never been the wrong sort. She'd been genuine, warm, real in ways no one in his world ever was. But she'd also gotten pregnant suspiciously fast, had shown up at his door with news perfectly timed to bind him to her. Hadn't she? The doubt crept in during quiet moments, unwelcome and persistent. Rosa's face when he'd accused her, she'd looked shattered. If she'd been running a con, wouldn't she have played it differently? Cried, pleaded, acted hurt instead of just being hurt? Jason crushed the thought. He couldn't afford uncertainty. He'd made his choice. He'd stick with it. His days blurred together, meetings, negotiations, expansions. People praised his focus, his drive. No one saw the emptiness beneath. Meanwhile, Rosa's belly grew larger, her exhaustion deeper. She'd had to quit the daycare job, couldn't keep up with toddlers while carrying twins. Now she survived on the diner and weekend housekeeping, her savings dwindling despite her desperate frugality. The doctor warned her about stress, about doing too much. Rosa nodded, said nothing about her reality. What choice did she have? She'd refused Jason's money. She'd made this bed. Now she'd lie in it no matter how uncomfortable. "You should rest more," Betty insisted, watching Rosa wince through a contraction during her shift. "Those babies come early. You being on your feet all night won't help. I need the hours. You need to be alive for those girls." Rosa knew Betty was right, but fear kept her working. Fear of bills, of homelessness, of failing before her daughters even arrived. She'd escaped one trap, only to find herself in another, this one of her own making. Still, when she lay down at night, feeling her daughters move inside her, Rosa experienced moments of pure joy. They were hers. No one could take them, dismiss them, reduce them to transactions. They'd grow up knowing their worth had nothing to do with money or status, or men who couldn't see past their own damage. Harper and Hazel. She decided on their names during a rare afternoon off. Strong names, names that meant something. The twins arrived 6 weeks early in a flurry of panic and pain that Rosa barely remembered afterward. What she did remember, the moment they placed both daughters on her chest, tiny and perfect, their eyes, grey eyes, she noticed with a jolt, blinking up at her. "You're here," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You're finally here," Harper cried lustily, announcing her presence to the world. Hazel watched quietly, taking everything in. Already so different, already themselves. Betty visited the hospital, brought groceries Rosa couldn't afford. "You got this," she said simply. "You're stronger than you know." Rosa wanted to believe her. Holding her daughters, watching them breathe, she felt both invincible and terrified. How would she do this alone? How would she be enough? But she would be. She had to be. Jason stood in his office, staring at nothing, feeling the ghost of something lost. His father had sent an assistant to handle closing the Rosa situation permanently. Legal documents, ensuring no future claims, no messy complications. "All settled," his father reported. "She signed everything, took nothing. Smart girl, knowing when she was beaten." Jason felt sick but said nothing. Settled, handled, finished. Except nothing felt finished. Everything felt suspended, incomplete, wrong. His sister Lily cornered him at a family gathering, her expression furious. "I know what you did, what Dad made you do. You don't know anything. I know you're miserable. I know you pushed away someone who actually cared about you. I know you're too proud to admit you made a mistake." It wasn't a mistake. She was what? Real? Human? Someone who didn't worship your bank account? Jason walked away from Lily, from the conversation, from the accusation in her eyes. He'd done the right thing. He'd protected himself. So why did protecting himself feel like dying slowly? Rosa brought her daughters home to a tiny apartment, barely furnished, but filled with determination. She'd figure this out. Day by day, hour by hour, she'd build a life for Harper and Hazel. She'd already survived Jason Snowden's cruelty. She'd survive anything. Chapter 3. The Collision. Rosa adjusted her blazer nervously, checking her reflection in the hotel bathroom mirror. The conference badge hung around her neck, Dr. Rosabella, child development specialist, still felt surreal. She'd worked herself to exhaustion earning that title, taking night classes while her daughters slept, writing papers during their school hours, surviving on caffeine and sheer willpower. Harper and Hazel walked beside her now, dressed in matching but different-colored outfits, Harper in deep purple, Hazel in forest green. Their choice, their way of being identical but separate. "Mom, can we see the science exhibits?" Harper asked, bouncing slightly. Her energy was boundless, inherited from somewhere Rosa couldn't name without thinking about him. "After my presentation," Rosa promised. "Then we'll explore everything." Hazel squeezed her hand. Quiet support, the way she always offered comfort. Her daughters were so different, yet so unified in protecting their mother. They sensed when she was stressed, tired, scared. They'd grown up attuned to her struggles, though Rosa tried to shield them. The convention center buzzed with educators, administrators, researchers. Rosa's stomach churned. Her presentation was minor, barely a footnote in the schedule, but she'd poured herself into the research, understanding childhood resilience, particularly in single-parent households. Personal experience informing academic inquiry. "You've got this, Mom," Harper whispered fiercely. "You're going to be amazing." Rosa smiled, touched her daughters' heads. They were her anchors, her reason for everything. She found the small conference room assigned to her, began setting up her materials. Attendees trickled in, maybe 20 people, respectable for an unknown presenter. Rosa took a steadying breath, launched into her research. The presentation flowed better than expected. Questions came that she could answer confidently. People seemed genuinely interested. As she wrapped up, Rosa felt a small bloom of pride. She'd done this, built this, become someone despite everything working against her. "Thank you all," she concluded. The full study will be published next quarter. Applause, polite but warm. Rosa gathered her materials, accepted a few business cards, promised to stay in touch with other researchers. Come on, science time. Harper announced the moment they were free. The main exhibition hall was massive, filled with interactive displays about ecology, technology, space exploration. Harper and Hazel darted between exhibits, their excitement infectious. Rosa followed, grateful for their joy, for this moment of normalcy after weeks of stress. Mom, look. Hazel called from a display about ocean currents. You can make a whirlpool. Rosa moved to join them, smiling at Hazel's rare enthusiasm. Then the world stopped. Across the hall, surrounded by suited figures and bustling assistants, stood Jason Snowden. Rosa's breath caught in her throat. She hadn't seen him in person since that night, had deliberately avoided news about him, blocked his name from searches, erased his existence as completely as he'd tried to erase hers. But here he was, solid and real, giving some kind of speech at the main stage. Hilda sharper somehow, his presence commanding attention even from a distance. Mom. Harper's voice seemed to come from underwater. You okay? Rosa couldn't speak. Memories crashed over her. His sneer, his accusations, the money offered like an insult. But also the moments before, his laugh, his gentleness, the way he'd looked at her like she mattered. Jason turned slightly during his speech, and Rosa's heart stopped. She grabbed her daughter's hands instinctively. We need to go, she said, voice tight. But we just got here, Harper protested. Now. Something in Rosa's tone made both girls obey without further argument. They moved quickly toward the exit, Rosa's heels clicking urgently against polished floors. Behind them, on stage, Jason paused mid-sentence. He'd seen something in his peripheral vision, a flash of movement, a woman's profile that sent electricity down his spine. He scanned the crowd, lost his place in the speech, recovered awkwardly. There, near the back, moving away. Dark curly hair, elegant posture, something in the way she moved that made his chest constrict. Two small figures flanked her, holding her hands. Children. Girls. Jason's mouth went dry. The words he'd been saying evaporated. Someone coughed in the audience, waiting for him to continue. He forced himself to focus, finished the speech on autopilot, barely registered the applause. The moment he stepped off stage, he moved toward where he'd seen the woman. Gone. Disappeared into the crowd like smoke. Everything all right? His assistant asked. Fine, Jason lied, his heart hammering. I need 5 minutes. He walked the exhibition hall, searching, knowing it was impossible but unable to stop. A woman with 2 daughters, nothing more. Coincidence. His mind playing tricks, except those children had been the right height, the right age. And that profile, that walk. Jason, a conference organizer, grabbed his attention, pulling him toward another obligation. Jason went mechanically, but part of him remained suspended, searching. Outside, Rosa bundled her daughters into a taxi, her hands shaking so badly she could barely give the address. Mom, what's wrong? Hazel asked, her perceptive eyes seeing everything. Nothing, baby. Just tired. Long day. Harper and Hazel exchanged glances, the twin communication Rosa couldn't penetrate. They knew she was lying but didn't push. In the taxi, Rosa leaned her head back, closed her eyes. Seeing Jason had ripped open wounds she'd thought healed. Worse, he'd been so close to Harper and Hazel. What if he'd seen them? What if he'd recognized something in their faces? The girls looked like her mostly, her warm brown skin, her curly hair, her full mouth. But their eyes, those steel-gray eyes, were pure Jason. Anyone who knew him might notice. We're not coming back tomorrow, are we? Harper asked quietly. No, sweetheart. We're going home, but your conference, it's fine. We'll go home. Rosa couldn't risk another encounter. Couldn't risk Jason seeing Harper and Hazel, doing the calculations, coming to the obvious conclusion. They'd built a life without him. He'd made his choice that night in the penthouse. This was her protecting that choice, protecting her daughters from rejection. Back at the hotel, Jason stood at his window, staring out at the city. unable to shake the feeling that something momentous had just slipped through his fingers. His phone rang. Lily checking in. He didn't answer. The woman in the crowd haunted him. Those children haunted him. The way she'd moved, urgent, almost afraid, made his instincts scream that he was missing something crucial. But what? A ghost from his past? A coincidence? Or something his subconscious recognized that his conscious mind refused to acknowledge? Jason poured himself a drink, tried to focus on paperwork, failed completely. Across the city, Rosa held her daughters while they slept, memorizing their faces, reminding herself why she'd stayed away. Tomorrow, they'd go home, back to their safe, small life, back to pretending Jason Snowden didn't exist. Except now, she knew he was out there, real and close. And somehow, that changed everything. Chapter 4. The Investigation. Jason couldn't sleep. The image of the woman haunted him, the line of her shoulders, the protective way she'd grabbed those children, the urgency in her departure. Something primal in his brain kept circling back, insisting he'd seen something important. At dawn, he called his assistant. "I need you to get me the complete attendee list from yesterday's conference. Everyone who registered, especially presenters. That's a long list, sir. Can you narrow it down? Child development specialists, women, anyone presenting research." He paused. "Anyone named Rosa." His assistant didn't question the request. By afternoon, the file arrived. Jason scrolled through names. Faces from badge photos. Nothing. Then, Dr. Rosa Bella, Child Development Specialist. His hands froze on the keyboard. The photo was small but unmistakable. Rosa, older, more polished, wearing professional attire and a confident expression. But definitely her. Jason's heart hammered against his ribs. He clicked through to her presentation abstract. Research on resilience in children raised by single mothers. The irony felt like a slap. Single mother, children, 2 of them. His mind did the calculation he'd been avoiding. Rosa had been pregnant when she left. That was definite. The timeline meant those children would be around. Jason stood abruptly, pacing his office. No, he'd offered her money. She'd refused. She'd walked away completely. If those children were his, she would have said something, would have come back, would have demanded support, unless she hated him enough to cut him out entirely. The thought sent ice through his veins. What if those 2 girls he'd glimpsed were his daughters? What if Rosa had spent years raising his children alone, refusing to contact him out of sheer pride or pain or justified rage? "Get me everything," Jason told his assistant. "Nurse knows what to say. We're stunned. Everything about Dr. Rosa Bella. Where she lives, where she works, where those children go to school. I want a complete background." "Sir, that's legal. Make sure it's legal." But thorough. The file arrived 2 days later. Jason read it 3 times, each pass making his chest tighter. Rosa lived modestly, worked at a community center, taught part-time. The twins, Harper and Hazel Bella, no father listed on any records, attended public school. Honor students, both of them, involved in different activities, Harper in debate team, Hazel in art club. Photos were scarce, but Jason found one from a school website. His breath stopped completely. 2 girls, identical except for different smiles. Harper's grin was wide and challenging. Hazel's was gentle and observing. But their eyes, those gray eyes staring out from the photo, were mirrors of his own. Jason's hands shook. These were his daughters. No paternity test needed. He knew it bone deep, the way he'd known Rosa that night in the crowd. His daughters, who didn't know he existed, who'd grown up without him, who'd been raised by a mother he'd accused of being a gold digger and thrown out of his life. The realization crashed over him in waves, rage, grief, loss, more rage. How dare she keep this from him? How dare she steal years of his children's lives? He had rights. He'd called her a liar, offered her money like she was trash, told her to disappear. Jason sank into his chair, his head in his hands. What had he done? But the anger remained burning beneath the guilt. She should have told him. Should have proved him wrong. Should have fought for their daughters instead of vanishing. I want Rosabella's schedule, he told his assistant. I need to know where she'll be and when. Sir, this is starting to feel... Just do it. Rosa felt it before she knew what it was. That prickle of awareness, the sense of being watched. She'd developed instincts during her hardest years, ways of sensing danger. Something was coming. She felt it in her bones. She picked Harper and Hazel up from school with extra vigilance, checking the street for unfamiliar cars. Nothing obvious, but the feeling persisted. Mum, you're being weird, Harper observed. What's wrong? Nothing, baby. You always say that when something's wrong, Hazel added quietly. Rosa hated that her daughters had learned to read her anxiety. She'd tried so hard to shield them, to give them stability, but children noticed everything. That night, she triple-checked the locks, closed curtains she normally left open. Harper and Hazel did homework at the kitchen table, while Rosa made dinner with shaking hands. Did you see someone from before? Hazel asked suddenly. At the conference. Rosa's knife stilled against the cutting board. Why would you ask that? Because you've been different since we came back. Scared. Too perceptive. Her quiet daughter saw everything. I'm not scared, Rosa lied. Just tired. But when she tucked them into bed, she held both girls longer than usual, breathing in their shampoo smell, memorizing their warmth. We love you, Mom, Harper said. Whatever's wrong, we've got your back. Tears burned Rosa's eyes. I love you both more than anything in this world. We know, Hazel whispered. We've always known. After they slept, Rosa sat in the dark living room, her phone in her hand. She should run. Pack up, move again, disappear before Jason found them. She'd done it once. She could do it again, but Harper and Hazel had friends here, stability, a home. Running would traumatize them, make them feel unsafe. And for what? Jason had made his feelings clear. He wouldn't want daughters he'd never acknowledged, except that look in the crowd, brief but unmistakable, had held recognition. What if he'd seen them? What if he was already searching? Rosa's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She stared at it, paralyzed, then let it go to voicemail. The message was brief. Rosa, we need to talk. I know about Harper and Hazel. Meet me tomorrow at the coffee shop on Maple Street. Noon. Come alone. Jason's voice, unmistakable. Rosa's hands went numb. He knew. He'd found them. The walls she'd built for years crumbled in seconds. She wanted to scream, to cry, to rage at the universe for this cruelty. But she sat frozen, listening to the message repeat, knowing that tomorrow everything would change. In his penthouse, Jason stared at his phone, waiting for a response that didn't come. He'd given her an out, a public place, neutral ground. A conversation instead of a confrontation, but the silence felt ominous. Lily appeared in his doorway unannounced, reading his expression instantly. You found her. She had my children, has present tense. Two daughters I've never met. Oh, Jason. Lily moved closer. What are you going to do? Get what's mine. The words came out harsh, possessive. She kept my daughters from me. That's not happening anymore. Maybe she had reasons. What reasons justify stealing my children? Lily looked at him sadly. What reasons justified calling her a liar and throwing her out? Jason turned away, unable to meet his sister's eyes. This is different, is it? But Jason's mind was already moving forward. Lawyers, custody arrangements, visitation schedules. He'd been denied his daughters for years. That ended now. What he couldn't admit even to himself was the terror beneath the anger. What if Harper and Hazel hated him? What if they'd been raised to see him as the villain? What if he'd lost them before even knowing they existed? In the morning, Rosa would have to face him, have to explain, defend, protect, but tonight she held vigil in the darkness, preparing for a war she'd hoped never to fight. Chapter 5. Warfare. Rosa arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early, choosing a table with clear sightlines to both exits. Old habits from harder times, always know your escape routes. She'd left Harper and Hazel with Betty, who'd asked no questions, just pulled the girls into a hug and promised movies and snacks. Rosa's hands had trembled, kissing them goodbye, wondering what version of their lives they'd return to. Jason walked in exactly at noon, his presence drawing attention despite his casual clothes. He spotted Rosa immediately, his expression unreadable. He sat down across from her without preamble. "They're mine, not a question." Rosa met his eyes steadily. "Yes. For how long have you known?" "Since the night I told you I was pregnant. When you offered me money and told me to disappear." Her voice remained calm, despite the acid in her words. Jason's jaw tightened. "You should have insisted. Proved it to me. I shouldn't have had to prove I wasn't lying. You should have believed me. People lie about this all the time." "I didn't." Rosa leaned forward. "I came to you with truth. You gave me contempt, so I left. Taking my children." "They're not your children, Jason. They're mine. I carried them. I birthed them alone. I fed them, clothed them, raised them for years, while you lived your life pretending we didn't exist. Because you made that choice. You could have what?" Rosa's voice rose slightly before she caught herself. "Come back begging. Let you treat us like a problem to be managed. Let my daughters grow up knowing their father saw them as a trap." Jason flinched. That's exactly what happened." Rosa's hands were steady now, her resolve hardening. "You made yourself clear, so I did what you suggested. I disappeared. I raised my daughters without complications. Our daughters. No, mine." Rosa stood. "You wanted me gone. I'm gone. Leave us alone." "I can't do that." Jason stood too, his voice dropping. "They're my blood. I have rights. You have nothing. You signed away your rights when you called me a gold digger and showed me the door. There was no legal document." "I don't care about legal documents." Rosa grabbed her purse. "You're not ready to be their father. You're angry, possessive, treating them like property. That's not love. That's ownership. You don't get to decide what I feel. I get to decide what they're exposed to, and I won't let you hurt them the way you hurt me." Rosa walked toward the door. Jason followed, his frustration palpable. "This isn't over," he said. "Yes, it is. I'll take you to court. I'll get custody rights. Rosa turned back, her expression fierce. "You'll what? Traumatize two little girls who don't know you exist. Force yourself into their lives because your ego is bruised. They're children, Jason, not pawns in whatever game you're playing with yourself. I'm their father. Biology doesn't make you a father. Being there does, and you haven't been." The words landed like physical blows. Jason stood frozen as Rosa walked out, disappeared into the street, left him standing in the coffee shop feeling gutted. His phone was in his hand before he'd thought it through. Calling his attorney. "I need you to file for paternity testing and custody rights immediately." "Sir, maybe we should discuss now." The legal papers arrived at Rosa's apartment 3 days later, delivered by a courier she'd watched approach with dread. Petition for paternity testing, motion for custody arrangement, demand for access. Rosa read each page with growing cold fury. He was doing this, actually doing this. She called the only attorney she could afford, a tired woman who handled cases like Rosa's on sliding scales. "This is aggressive," the attorney said, scanning the documents. "He's requesting joint custody immediately following paternity confirmation. He doesn't even know them. The court will see biology as relevant, especially if he can prove..." "Prove what?" "That I kept them from him." Rosa's voice broke slightly. "He didn't want them. He told me to disappear. Can you prove that?" Rosa had no recordings, no witnesses, no evidence except her word against his. And Jason had resources she couldn't match. Attorneys, connections, credibility money bought. "We'll need to prepare for the paternity test," her attorney continued. "It's court-ordered, so refusal isn't an option. After that, we fight the custody arrangement. How do I explain this to Harper and Hazel?" The attorney looked at Rosa with sympathy. Very carefully. That night, Rosa sat her daughters down in their small living room. They sensed the gravity immediately, flanking her on the couch. "I need to tell you something about your father." Rosa began, her voice steady despite her shaking hands. Harper and Hazel went very still. They'd asked about their father occasionally over the years, accepting Rosa's vague explanations that he wasn't part of their lives, that it was complicated. "His name is Jason Snowden," Rosa continued. "I knew him before you were born. When I told him I was pregnant, he didn't believe the babies were his. He asked me to leave, so I did. He didn't want us." Harper's voice was small, unlike her. Rosa's heart cracked. "He didn't know you, didn't know who you'd become. I think he was scared and made a bad choice. Why are you telling us now?" Hazel asked quietly, her perceptive eyes seeing the truth Rosa was dancing around. "Because he found us, and he wants to meet you." Silence. Then Harper, "No, sweetheart, he threw us away. Why should we meet him now?" Rosa had no good answer. Hazel said nothing, processing internally the way she always did. "There's going to be a test," Rosa explained, "to prove he's your biological father. Then the court will decide if he gets to spend time with you. What if we don't want to?" Harper's face was fierce, protective of her mother. "I'll fight for what you want, but the law might not care." That night, Rosa heard Harper crying in the room she shared with Hazel. Heard Hazel's quiet comforting. The sound destroyed her. This was what Jason's return had brought. Pain for her daughters, uncertainty in their stable world, questions about their worth and whether their father had ever wanted them. The paternity test happened at a sterile clinic, all of them awkward and angry. Jason arrived separately, stared at Harper and Hazel like they were puzzles to solve. The girls stared back with Rosa's proud silence, giving him nothing. Results came back within days. 99.9% probability of paternity. Jason Snowden was legally confirmed as their father. The custody hearing was set. Rosa's attorney prepared her for battle. Character witnesses, evidence of stable home life, documentation of every sacrifice she'd made. Jason's attorneys were sharks, filing motion after motion, requesting psychological evaluations, questioning Rosa's fitness as a parent. "He's trying to break you," Rosa's attorney said, "make you too exhausted to fight." But Rosa had survived worse than legal warfare. She'd survived poverty and loneliness and childbirth without support. Jason's money couldn't touch her core. Still, the fear remained. What if the court sided with him? What if biology trumped everything else? What if she lost Harper and Hazel to a man who saw them as possessions? At night, Rosa held her daughters close, promised them everything would be fine, believed it less each time. The judge's decision came down like a gavel. Supervised visitation rights for Jason, pending evaluation. 2 hours per week in a neutral location, with a court-appointed supervisor present. Rosa wanted to scream. Jason looked vindicated, but Harper and Hazel looked terrified, and that was all that mattered. "We'll get through this," Rosa whispered to them outside the courthouse. "Together, like always." Jason watched them walk away, his victory feeling hollow. He'd won legal rights to his daughters. So why did he feel like he'd lost something crucial? Behind him, Lily appeared, shaking her head. "You're doing this all wrong. I'm doing what I have to do. You're forcing yourself on children who don't want you. That's not fatherhood. That's tyranny." Jason turned away from his sister, from the truth in her words, from the growing certainty that he'd set something terrible in motion, that he didn't know how to stop. Chapter 6. Unwanted proximity. The visitation center smelled like industrial cleaner and stale coffee. Rosa sat in the waiting area with Harper and Hazel, their small hands gripping hers with varying degrees of tension. Harper's jaw was set in stubborn defiance. Hazel stared at her shoes, withdrawn in the way she became when overwhelmed. "Remember what we talked about," Rosa said softly. "You don't have to talk if you don't want to. You don't have to hug him or touch him. Just be there. 2 hours. Then we go home." "This is stupid," Harper muttered. "Why do we have to meet someone who didn't want us?" Rosa had no answer that wouldn't sound like she was defending Jason, which she refused to do. The truth was messy and painful and entirely inappropriate for children. The supervisor, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a clipboard, appeared in the doorway. "We're ready." Rosa squeezed both daughters' hands. "I'll be right here the whole time. You're not alone." She watched them walk down the corridor, Harper's shoulders squared like she was heading into battle. Hazel nearly invisible beside her sister. Rosa's chest ached. Through the observation window, one-way glass the girls couldn't see, but Rosa could. She watched Jason stand as Harper and Hazel entered the room. He'd clearly tried to dress casually, but everything about him screamed wealth and control. He attempted a smile that came out wrong, too forced. "Hello," he said. I'm your father, Jason." Harper crossed her arms. "We know who you are." Hazel said nothing, studying him with those unnerving grey eyes that mirrored his own. Jason looked to the supervisor for help. She offered none, just gestured to the chairs and tables set up for their visit. "I brought some things," Jason said, pulling out wrapped boxes. "I wasn't sure what you liked, so we don't want your presents," Harper interrupted. "Mom says we have to be here, so we're here. But we don't want anything from you." Jason's hands stilled on the boxes. Rosa saw something cross his face, pain maybe, or wounded pride. "I understand you're angry. We're not angry. We don't care enough to be angry." Harper's voice was cold, adult, devastating. Hazel finally spoke, her voice quiet but clear. "Why are you doing this?" Jason looked at her, seemed startled by the directness. "Because you're my daughters. I want to know you." "You didn't before. I didn't know you existed before." "You did," Hazel corrected gently. "Mom told you. You didn't believe her. That's different from not knowing." Rosa's breath caught. Her gentle daughter speaking truth like a knife. Jason had no response. The silence stretched uncomfortable and thick. "Can we do something?" Harper asked the supervisor. "Just sit here staring is weird." The supervisor suggested board games. They played for an hour in painful awkwardness. Jason trying too hard, Harper giving nothing, Hazel observing everything with those analytical eyes. He asked questions they answered in monosyllables. What grade were they in? What subjects did they like? Did they play any instruments? Each answer felt extracted, given grudgingly. "Your mother," Jason said finally. "She's done well with you. You're both obviously smart and—" "Don't talk about our mom," Harper snapped. "You don't get to judge her. You don't get to talk about her at all. I wasn't judging. You judged her before we were even born. Said she was lying. That's the only thing we need to know about you." Jason looked stricken. Through the glass, Rosa felt a confusing mix of satisfaction and discomfort. She wanted him to hurt the way she'd hurt, wanted her daughters to defend her. But watching him fumble with children who hated him felt strange and sad. The 2 hours finally ended. Harper and Hazel bolted for the door the moment the supervisor said time was up. Rosa met them in the hallway, pulled them close. "You okay?" "That was awful," Harper said into her shoulder. "Do we have to do it again?"
Yes, sweetheart."
"For a while." Hazel looked back toward the visitation room. "He's sad." "That's not your problem," Harper said fiercely, but Rosa saw something in Hazel's expression, her empathetic daughter struggling with the pain of someone she was supposed to hate. It worried her. Jason emerged moments later, saw them in the hallway. He looked gutted. "Thank you for bringing them," he said to Rosa. She said nothing, just guided her daughters toward the exit. "Same time next week?" Jason called after them. Rosa didn't respond. Harper made a disgusted noise. Hazel glanced back once, unreadable. In the parking lot, Rosa buckled them into her aging car, the one that barely started some mornings, that she kept running through prayer and mechanical knowledge gained from necessity. "I hate this," Harper said from the back seat. "He's trying to buy us with stupid presents and fake smiles, like we're that easy." "No one thinks you're easy," Rosa said, starting the car on the third try. "He's lonely," Hazel observed quietly. "So? That's his fault. He made himself lonely." Rosa caught Hazel's eyes in the rearview mirror. Her quieter daughter was processing something the rest of them weren't. It made Rosa nervous. That evening, Jason's sister Lily showed up at Rosa's apartment unannounced. Rosa opened the door to find a woman who looked like Jason, but softer, her expression apologetic. I know I shouldn't be here, Lily said immediately. But I wanted to meet you, really meet you, and apologize for my brother. Who is it? Harper called from inside. Your aunt, apparently, Rosa said dryly, still blocking the doorway. Lily's face lit up. Are they here? Can I meet them? I promise I'm not like Jason. I'm not here to threaten or intimidate. I just want to know my nieces. Something in her sincerity made Rosa step aside. Against her better judgment, she let Lily in. Harper and Hazel appeared in the living room, curious and guarded. Lily's eyes filled with tears seeing them. You look just like him, she whispered. But you have your mother's grace. Are you here to make us like him? Harper asked suspiciously. No. I'm here because you're my family, and I've missed you without knowing I was missing you. Lily sat on the floor, making herself less threatening. I'm here because my brother is an idiot who hurt your mother badly, and I want you to know not all of us are like that. Hazel moved closer. Studying Lily the way she'd studied Jason, you're different from him. I try to be. They talked for an hour, Lily asking gentle questions, sharing stories about Jason as a boy that humanized him slightly, making Harper and Hazel laugh despite themselves. Rosa watched warily, but Lily was genuine in ways Jason wasn't. She didn't try too hard, didn't bring gifts, didn't make promises. She just was present. Can I come back? Lily asked before leaving. Not for Jason, for us. For them. Rosa hesitated, then nodded. They could use more family who actually cares. The barb landed softly. Lily winced but accepted it. He does care. He just doesn't know how to show it. Her father taught him to see threats everywhere. That's not my problem. No, it's his. Lily squeezed Rosa's hand. But those girls deserve better than watching their parents hate each other. Maybe I can help. After Lily left, Harper said, She's nice. Why isn't he like her? Rosa had no answer. People were complicated. Jason was complicated. But that didn't excuse cruelty. The weekly visitations continued, each one slightly less horrible than the last. Jason stopped bringing extravagant gifts, started asking better questions. Harper remained hostile, but less viciously so. Hazel began answering with more than one word. Progress, maybe, or just resignation. Jason learned their favorite colors, their different personalities, their talents. Harper's fierce intelligence and protective nature. Hazel's quiet observation and artistic soul. He saw Rosa in them, and something of himself, a combination that made his chest tight. But they still looked at him like a stranger, because he was. One visitation, Hazel asked him directly, Do you love us? Jason froze, the question impossible and necessary. I want to. I'm trying to. That's not the same thing. No, it wasn't. And Hazel's gentle honesty made him realize how much work he had ahead. After that session, Jason approached Rosa in the parking lot. Can we talk? Really talk? We have nothing to say. I think we do. He gestured to a coffee shop across the street. 30 minutes. No lawyers, no anger. Just two parents trying to figure this out. Rosa wanted to refuse. But she saw exhaustion in his face that mirrored her own, and maybe, just maybe, the beginning of something like understanding. 30 minutes, she agreed. Then I'm taking my daughters home. They sat across from each other, coffee between them, years of pain and resentment filling the silence. I'm sorry, Jason said finally, for what I said that night, for not believing you. For everything that came after. Rosa stirred her coffee mechanically. Your sorry doesn't change anything. I know, but I need you to hear it anyway. Why? So you feel better? So your guilt is lessened? You know I understand what I did. Jason leaned forward. My father raised me to see manipulation everywhere, to trust no one who got close. When you told me you were pregnant, all I could hear was his voice, warning me about traps and schemes. I was cruel. Because I was terrified. Your fear doesn't excuse cruelty. No, it doesn't, but maybe it explains it. Jason's voice dropped. I've missed everything, Rosa. Their first words, first steps, first days of school. I can't get that back, but I want to know them now. Really know them. They don't trust you. I don't deserve their trust. But I'll earn it, however long it takes. Rosa studied his face, searching for lies and finding only tired truth. He looked older, worn down by the weight of his mistakes. They're not possessions, she said. You can't just claim them, because biology says you should. They're people with feelings and memories and scars. I'm learning that. Are you? Because forcing yourself into their lives through court orders doesn't feel like learning. It feels like control. Jason flinched. You're right. I handled this wrong from the beginning. I was angry and hurt, and you were hurt. Rosa's voice rose. You were hurt? Not like you, not even close. But yes, finding out I had daughters I'd never known existed, that you'd built a life without me, it hurt. He held up a hand before she could interrupt. I'm not comparing our pain. Yours is immeasurably greater. I'm just trying to be honest about what I felt. Rosa wanted to stay angry, to hold her rage like armor. But looking at Jason's face, she saw something she hadn't expected, genuine remorse. Not enough to forgive, maybe never enough, but real. What do you want from us? She asked finally. I want to be their father, not because I have rights or because a court says so, because I want them to know I'm here, that I'm not leaving again. Words are easy, Jason. Harper and Hazel need proof. Then I'll give them proof. Every week, every visit, every moment, they'll let me. I'll show them I'm not going anywhere. Rosa finished her coffee, stood to leave. They're testing you. Every time you show up, they're waiting for you to quit, to prove you're exactly who they think you are. I won't quit. We'll see. Rosa walked out, leaving Jason with his promises and her doubt. But something had shifted, barely perceptible, fragile as spider silk. Not forgiveness, not trust, just the smallest crack in the wall between them. Maybe it was enough to start, or maybe it was just another disappointment waiting to happen. Time would tell. Chapter 7. Cracks in the Armor. Jason showed up to the 6th visitation with paint supplies instead of toys. He'd overheard Hazel mention liking art, so he'd researched kid-friendly painting projects, bought good materials, hoped it would be something they could do together. Harper eyed the supplies suspiciously. What's this? I thought we could paint. If you want, or we can do something else. Hazel approached the table slowly, her fingers hovering over the brushes. These are nice. I asked someone at the art store what would be good for your skill level. She recommended these. You asked someone about us? Hazel's surprise was evident. I asked lots of people about you. I'm trying to learn who you are. Harper still looked dubious, but Hazel had already opened the paints, her artist's soul unable to resist. They spent the session painting, awkward at first, then easier as the creative work distracted from the forced interaction. Jason discovered he was terrible at painting. Harper found this hilarious, her first genuine laugh in his presence. Even Hazel smiled, showing him techniques for blending colors. You're really bad at this, Harper said, not unkindly. I'm very bad at this, Jason agreed. What am I even painting? It looks like a sad blob, Hazel observed. It's supposed to be a sunset. Both girls laughed together. At him, a moment of shared humor that felt monumental. When the session ended, Hazel asked if she could take her painting home. Jason helped her pack it carefully. Next week, Harper said grudgingly, maybe we could do something I like, if you want. Jason's heart nearly stopped. What do you like? Puzzles, logic problems, stuff that's actually hard. I can do hard. We'll see, Harper said, but there was less hostility in her voice. Rosa noticed the shift immediately when she collected them. Harper was chattering about the painting session, critiquing Jason's terrible technique. Hazel carried her artwork protectively. Did something happen? Rosa asked carefully. He wasn't completely awful, Harper admitted. Still don't like him. But he tried. That night, Hazel hung her painting on their shared bedroom wall. Rosa stared at it, a sunset, competent and lovely. Her daughter had created something during time with her father. The complexity of that reality made Rosa's head hurt. The next visitation, Jason brought logic puzzles as promised. Harper lit up, diving into them with ferocious concentration. Jason struggled to keep up with her rapid mind, and she clearly enjoyed being smarter than him. "You're not good at this either," Harper said, working through a particularly complex problem. "Your mother always said I was stubborn, not smart." Harper looked up sharply. "Mom talked about you?" Jason realized his mistake. "I meant she never talked about you, ever. So what did she really say?" The question hung heavy. Jason could lie, deflect. Or he could offer truth. "She said I was someone who couldn't see past my own damage to recognize what was real." She was right. Harper studied him with those disconcerting eyes. "Yeah, she usually is." They returned to the puzzle. But something had shifted again. Harper, seeing him as human, flawed, maybe worth another chance. Over subsequent weeks, Jason learned their rhythms. Harper needed intellectual challenge and respected directness. Hazel needed space and appreciated gentleness. Both needed consistency more than grand gestures. He showed up every week on time, prepared. He asked about their schoolwork, their friends, their mother, without being invasive. He listened more than he spoke, a skill that didn't come naturally, but that he forced himself to develop. One day, Hazel brought her sketchbook. "I want to show you something." The pages were filled with drawings. Their apartment, Betty, Rosa reading, Harper laughing. Everyday moments rendered with surprising skill. "These are beautiful," Jason said honestly. "This one's my favorite." Hazel turned to a drawing of Rosa at their kitchen table, exhausted, her head in her hands. But there was light coming through the window, falling across her face. Struggle and hope in one image. "Your mother's incredibly strong," Jason said quietly. "She had to be. Because you weren't there." The words weren't accusatory, just factual. They hurt more for their simplicity. "You're right. She carried everything alone." "She still does," Hazel said. "She works so hard." "Her hands shake sometimes when she thinks we're not looking." Jason's chest tightened. "Why do they shake?" "Too many jobs. Too much stress. Too much everything." Hazel closed her sketchbook. "She won't let you help. Won't take money. But she's tired. I can see it. What can I do?" Hazel looked at him with eyes that saw too much. "I don't know. But watching her struggle when you have so much feels wrong." The observation stayed with Jason long after the session ended. He couldn't force help on Rosa. She'd made that boundary clear. But knowing she was exhausted, that his daughters watched her shake from overwork, made him feel helpless and guilty in equal measure. He approached the subject carefully with Rosa after the next exchange. "Harper mentioned you work multiple jobs." Rosa's expression closed. "That's not your concern. It is if it affects our daughters." "Our daughters are fine. I make sure they're fine. But you're not fine," Hazel said. "Hazel shouldn't be reporting to you about me." Rosa's voice was sharp. "My life, my struggles, my choices, they're mine. You don't get input just because you're suddenly trying to be involved. I'm not trying to control anything. I'm worried about you." "Don't be. I've survived this long without your concern." "Well, continue surviving." Jason wanted to argue, to insist, to use his resources to make everything easier. But he was learning slowly that Rosa's independence wasn't just pride. It was survival. Taking from him would feel like surrender, like admitting she couldn't do it alone. So he backed off, respected the boundary, hated himself for having created the situation that made her so fiercely self-reliant. That weekend, Lily visited again, bringing groceries she claimed were accidentally too many for her household. Rosa knew the lie but accepted it because Lily made it easy to pretend. "Jason told me about your conversation," Lily said, helping put things away. "He's worried about you." "He has no right to be worried." "Maybe not. But he is anyway." Lily paused. "He's trying, Rosa. I know it doesn't erase the past. But he's genuinely trying to change. For them, not for me." "Does the motivation matter if the result is better?" Rosa had no answer. She was tired, bone-tired, soul-tired, tired of fighting and surviving and being strong. "I can't forgive him," she said quietly. He destroyed something in me that night, made me doubt my worth, my judgment, everything. I rebuilt myself piece by piece. But the foundation is different now, harder. I can't go back to trusting easily. I'm not asking you to forgive him or trust him. I'm just suggesting that maybe you don't have to carry everything alone anymore. Accepting help feels like weakness. Accepting help is strength. Knowing when you need support takes more courage than suffering in silence. Rosa wanted to believe that, but stubbornness and pride were all that had gotten her through the hardest times. Letting them go felt dangerous. The next visitation brought an unexpected crisis. Hazel complained of dizziness during their session. Then her fever spiked, fast, concerning, sending everyone into immediate alarm. The supervisor called Rosa while Jason bundled Hazel into his car. They converged at the emergency room in a chaos of fear and adrenaline. Rosa burst through the doors to find Jason pacing, Hazel wrapped in his jacket, Harper hovering protectively. "What happened?" Rosa demanded, pulling Hazel close. "She just got hot so fast," Harper said, her voice shaking. "1 minute she was fine, then—" "They're running tests," Jason interrupted. "They think maybe meningitis, but they're not sure yet." Rosa felt the world tilt. Meningitis. The word carried weight. Danger, potential complications, risk. She clutched Hazel, who felt alarmingly hot against her. "I need to see a doctor. They're coming. They know she's here." Jason looked wrecked, his carefully maintained composure cracking. They were separated for examination. Rosa went with Hazel, holding her daughter's hand through the initial tests, the lumbar puncture that made Hazel cry. Jason and Harper waited in the hallway, both of them helpless and terrified. Hours crawled past. They gave Hazel fluids, antibiotics just in case, ran more tests. Rosa refused to leave her side, stroking her daughter's curly hair. Whispering reassurances, neither of them believed. Jason appeared in the doorway periodically, checking, offering support. Rosa couldn't accept, but appreciated anyway. Harper eventually came in, curled up on the other side of Hazel's bed, her tough exterior completely gone. "She's going to be okay," Rosa whispered to Harper. "She has to be okay. What if she's not?" Rosa had no answer. The possibility was too terrible to speak aloud. In the waiting room, Jason made calls he didn't want to make, alerting Lily, checking on insurance coverage, ensuring everything medical was handled. He felt useless, unable to fix this problem with money or influence or will. Lily arrived within an hour, brought coffee for everyone, sat with Jason in the awful silence. "This is your worst fear," she said quietly. "Losing them before you really have them." "I can't lose them. Any of them." Jason's voice broke. "Even Rosa, if something happened to her, if she's fine. She's with Hazel. She's exactly where she needs to be." But Jason realized something sitting in that hospital waiting room. Rosa was someone he still cared about, despite everything. Watching her fierce protection of their daughter, her strength in crisis, her refusal to crumble, it reminded him why he'd loved her, why he'd been terrified of loving her. The doctor finally emerged with news, not meningitis, just a severe viral infection. Hazel would recover fully with rest and fluids. The relief was staggering. Rosa emerged from Hazel's room looking destroyed. Jason stood automatically, wanting to comfort her, not knowing if he was allowed. "She's okay," Rosa said to the room. "She's going to be fine." Harper burst into tears, finally releasing the fear she'd been holding. Rosa pulled her close, both of them crying, releasing terror into relief. Jason stood apart, watching his family, and they were his family, he realized, experience something he was peripheral to. He wanted to be part of it, to hold them all, to share their relief. But he was still an outsider. Lily touched his arm gently. "Give them time! You can't force your way into that." They released Hazel late that night with instructions for monitoring. Rosa prepared to take both girls home, exhaustion written in every line of her body. "Let me drive you," Jason offered. "You're too tired. We'll manage." "Rosa, please." "You're shaking. Let me help." She looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time in months she saw past her anger to his genuine concern. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." Jason drove them home in silence. Harper asleep against Hazel, Hazel drowsy from medication, Rosa staring out the window. He pulled up to their apartment building, helped get the girls upstairs, waited while Rosa settled them. "Thank you," she said at the door, "for being there, for everything today." "I was terrified," Jason admitted. "Completely terrified." "So was I." They stood in the doorway. The space between them still vast, but somehow less insurmountable. "Good night." "Rosa." "Good night." Jason left and Rosa closed the door, leaning against it as the day's terror finally caught up with her. She cried quietly so her daughters wouldn't hear, releasing fear and gratitude and something uncomfortably close to acknowledgement that Jason was trying to become someone better. Maybe that was enough. For now. Chapter 8. Uncomfortable Truths. Jason stopped the legal proceedings without fanfare. No announcement, no grand gesture, just instructions to his attorneys to withdraw all custody motions. Let the supervised visitations continue informally as agreements between parents rather than court orders. Rosa received the notification from her attorney with suspicion. "He's dropping everything," she asked, reading the brief document. "Complete withdrawal. No conditions, no strings. He's asking for the current arrangement to continue voluntarily." Rosa didn't know what to make of this. Jason's sudden retreat from legal warfare felt significant but unclear. Was this manipulation, strategy, or genuine change? She didn't ask him directly. Instead, she watched. Jason continued showing up for visitations, never missed one, never came unprepared. He was learning Harper's debate style, helping her refine arguments. He was encouraging Hazel's art, asking about her drawings with genuine interest. The girls were warming to him gradually, not love, not even affection, but something like tentative acceptance. He existed in their lives now. That was progress. 3 months after the hospital incident, Jason sent Rosa a message. "Can we talk? Really talk, with no agenda except honesty?" They met at a neutral park, walking paths while Harper and Hazel played at a distant playground within sight. "I need to tell you something," Jason started. "About why I reacted the way I did when you told me you were pregnant." Rosa said nothing, just waited. "My father spent my entire childhood warning me about people who would use me for money. He was paranoid, convinced everyone had ulterior motives." Jason kept his eyes forward. "When I was younger, there was a woman, older than me, someone I thought cared about me. Turns out she was working with my father's competitor, getting close to steal information. It destroyed my ability to trust." "That's not an excuse." "I know, but it's context." Jason finally looked at her. "When you told me you were pregnant, all I heard was my father's voice saying, 'I told you so.' All I could see was betrayal. I was cruel because I was scared of being used again." Rosa absorbed this, feeling no sympathy, but understanding the shape of his damage. "Your trauma doesn't give you permission to traumatize others." "No, it doesn't, and I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking you to understand that my cruelty came from brokenness, not from anything you did wrong." They walked in silence for a while. Rosa watching Harper and Hazel, Jason watching her. "Tell me about them," Jason said quietly. "About raising them." "I want to know what I missed." Rosa hesitated. These were her memories, her private treasures of struggle and joy. But Jason's expression held genuine hunger to understand, and maybe sharing would help him grasp what he'd lost. Harper came out screaming, announcing herself to the world. Hazel came out quiet, just watching everything with those eyes. Rosa smiled at the memory. "I held them both and felt more terrified and more certain than ever in my life." "Were you alone?" "At the birth?" Betty was there, the woman from the diner. She held my hand through labor, cut their cords, helped me learn to nurse them both. She's been more family than anyone blood-related ever was. Jason's face tightened with something. Guilt, regret, both. I should have been there. Yes, you should have. But you weren't, so I did it alone. Tell me more. So Rosa did. She told him about sleepless nights with 2 crying infants, about working 3 jobs while they were tiny, about the terror of fevers and milestones reached without anyone to celebrate with. She told him about Harper's first word, no, predictably, and Hazel's first drawing, a son. About birthdays celebrated with dollar store decorations and love. You did everything right, Jason said hoarsely. Everything I should have been part of. I did what I had to do. Rosa stopped walking, faced him fully. But it was hard, Jason. Harder than you can imagine. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, wondering how I'd feed them the next day. There were moments I was so exhausted I couldn't remember my own name. There were times I resented you so completely I could taste it. I deserve that resentment. Yes, you do. But carrying it was poisoning me. I had to let it go, not for you, but for myself. For them. Rosa gestured toward Harper and Hazel. I couldn't raise them while drowning in bitterness. How did you let it go? I decided you were dead. Not literally, but in my mind. The Jason I'd loved was gone. The Jason who hurt me wasn't worth the energy to hate. Oh, I just moved on. Built a life where you didn't exist. The words landed like punches. Jason felt their impact, understood this was the price of his cruelty, complete erasure from their lives. And now, he asked, now that I exist again, now I have to figure out how to make space for you without destroying the balance I created. Rosa sighed. They're starting to like you, Jason. That terrifies me. Why? Because what happens when you fail them? When you get bored or frustrated or decide fatherhood is too hard? Harper and Hazel will survive. They're strong. But they'll carry that rejection forever. I won't let you do to them what you did to me. I'm not leaving. I'm not failing them. You don't know that. No one knows that, Rosa's voice hardened. You're still proving yourself. Every week, every interaction. You think showing up is enough, but it's not. They need to know you'll stay when it's hard, when they're difficult, when they disappoint you. I will stay. Words are easy. They returned to walking, the conversation heavy between them. What do you need from me? Jason asked finally. Not for the girls, for you. What do you need to feel okay with this arrangement? Rosa considered carefully. I need you to stop seeing us as something you lost and need to reclaim. We're not possessions. We're people who built a life without you. Respect that life. Respect the choices I made. Don't try to fix everything with money or control. Just be present without demanding credit for finally showing up. I can do that. Can you? Really? Rosa stopped again, her eyes searching his face. Because the moment you slip, the moment you make them feel like they're not enough, or like I failed them by keeping them from you, I'm done. I'll make it impossible for you to see them, court orders or not. I'll disappear again, and this time you won't find us. The threat was real. Jason saw it in her eyes, heard it in her voice. Rosa would protect Harper and Hazel with everything she had, even if it meant running. I won't slip, Jason said. I swear to you I won't hurt them. Don't swear to me. Swear to them. They collected the girls, who'd been playing oblivious to the heavy conversation nearby. Harper showed Rosa a flower she'd picked. Hazel had been drawing in the dirt with a stick, shapes and patterns only she understood. Ready to go? Rosa asked. Can we get ice cream? Harper requested. I'm starving. Rosa calculated quickly. Budget, timing, energy. Sure, baby. Ice cream sounds good. I'll get it, Jason offered immediately. No. Rosa, let me buy them ice cream. It's ice cream. She wanted to refuse on principle, but Harper and Hazel were already looking hopeful. Fine ice cream. Nothing else. They walked to a nearby shop, an odd family unit that didn't quite fit together but was learning. Jason bought cones for everyone, and they sat on benches eating in companionable silence. Hazel turned to Jason suddenly. Do you love us now? The question caught him mid-bite. Harper looked interested in his answer despite pretending not to care. Rosa watched carefully. Yes, Jason said honestly. I do. Not because I'm supposed to or because it looks good. Because I know you now. Because Harper challenges me and Hazel surprises me, and you're both incredible humans I'm grateful to know. Do you love Mom? The question came from Harper this time, testing, probing. Jason looked at Rosa, who'd gone very still. I love who your mother is, how she raised you, how she survived, how she's strong without being cruel. I don't know if that's the kind of love you mean, but I respect her more than almost anyone. That's not the same thing, Hazel observed. No, it's not, Jason agreed. But it's honest. The girls accepted this, returned to their ice cream. Rosa's expression remained unreadable. Walking home afterward, Harper said quietly to Rosa, He's not as bad as I thought. That doesn't mean you have to forgive him, Rosa responded carefully. I know, but maybe I don't have to hate him either. That night, Rosa lay in bed replaying the conversation. Jason's honesty about his damage, his respect for her strength, his admission that he loved their daughters not from obligation, but from genuine feeling. She didn't forgive him. Couldn't yet, maybe never. But the sharp edges of her anger were dulling, replaced by something more complex. Not trust, but acknowledgement. He was trying. That had to count for something. In his penthouse, Jason stared at his phone, at the message he'd typed and deleted a dozen times. Thank you for letting me in, for giving me a chance to know them. I won't waste it, he finally sent it. Rosa's response came an hour later. Don't thank me. Thank them. They're the ones giving you chances. Fair enough. Harper and Hazel were the real judges, and he was still proving his case. But for the first time since finding them, Jason felt like maybe, just maybe, he wasn't too late to become the father they deserved. Chapter 9. Rebuilding Foundations. Jason established routines with Harper and Hazel beyond mandated visitations. Thursday evenings became logic puzzle night with Harper at a coffee shop halfway between his place and Rosa's apartment. Hazel had Saturday morning art sessions where Jason watched her create while attempting his own terrible drawings. These weren't court-ordered or supervised. These were voluntary. His daughters choosing to spend time with him because they wanted to, not because they had to. The difference felt monumental. Harper pushed him intellectually, their debates ranging across philosophy and science and ethics. She was frighteningly smart, her mind moving in ways that humbled him. Jason found himself researching topics between their sessions, trying to keep up. You're wrong about this, Harper said one evening, pointing at his argument about moral relativism. Your premise is flawed because you're assuming humans act rationally. We don't. We try to. Trying doesn't count. Behavior is what matters. She was relentless, taking apart his reasoning with surgical precision. Jason learned to appreciate losing arguments to his daughter. She didn't need him to be right. She needed him to engage honestly. So he did, admitting when she'd cornered him logically, praising her sharp mind, encouraging her to push harder. With Hazel, time moved differently. Quieter, more contemplative. She'd sketch while he watched, occasionally showing him techniques or asking his opinion on color choices. Why did you really come back? Hazel asked one morning, not looking up from her drawing. Jason could have deflected, given easy answers. But Hazel deserved truth. I saw you and Harper at the conference, saw your eyes. Knew immediately you were mine, he paused. And I couldn't stand knowing I had daughters I didn't know. Couldn't stand the thought of you growing up thinking I didn't want you. But you didn't want us, I mean. Not at first. No, I didn't, and I hate that I didn't. But fear makes people cruel, and I was very afraid. Hazel considered this, her pencil moving across paper. Mom says fear is just information. It tells you something might be dangerous. But you still get to choose how you respond. Your mother is wiser than me about most things. She's wiser than most people about most things. They shared a small smile. Hazel returned to drawing, and Jason sat in comfortable silence, grateful she'd asked, grateful he'd answered honestly. Rosa watched these evolving relationships with complex feelings. Relief that Jason was following through, proving consistent. Anxiety that Harper and Hazel were getting attached to someone who'd hurt them before. Confusion about her own softening feelings toward the man she'd spent years trying to erase. Jason respected her boundaries carefully. He never pushed for more time than she offered, never questioned her parenting, never tried to buy affection with expensive gifts. The twins' birthdays approached, and he asked Rosa what would be appropriate. "They don't need things," Rosa said. "They need experiences, time. What if I took them somewhere they'd enjoy? With you, so it's not awkward. A day trip, something they'd remember." Rosa hesitated. Family outings felt dangerous, too close to playing house. But Harper and Hazel's birthday deserved celebrating, and they had so few extras in life. Where? Nudusuk, there's a science museum with a new exhibit Harper would love, and an art installation Hazel mentioned wanting to see. We could do both, one day. I'll drive, buy admission, handle logistics. You just be there. Why do you want me there? Jason met her eyes steadily. Because you're their mother. Because they need you more than they need me. Because doing this without you would feel wrong. Against her better judgment, Rosa agreed. The day arrived cool and clear. Jason picked them up in his car, not the luxury vehicle Rosa expected, but something practical and family appropriate. He'd thought about this, about not making them feel small or out of place. Harper claimed the front seat immediately, chattering about the exhibits she'd researched. Hazel sat in back with Rosa, her hand finding her mother's. Grounding herself, the museum was everything Harper hoped: interactive displays, complex demonstrations, questions that challenged her quick mind. She dragged Jason through every section, explaining concepts he barely understood, her excitement infectious. Jason watched her with transparent pride. "You're going to change the world someday." "Obviously," Harper responded, not arrogant but certain. "Someone has to fix all the problems adults are making." Rosa bit back a smile, her fierce daughter taking no prisoners. The art installation was quieter, more contemplative. Hazel moved through it slowly, studying each piece with focused intensity. Jason and Rosa followed at a distance, letting her experience it at her own pace. "She has your eyes," Rosa said quietly. "Yours and mine both, somehow. The color is all you, but the way she sees things, that's mine. They're both pieces of us," Jason responded. "Best pieces, hopefully. They're their own people. Not us at all. Better than us." They watched Hazel stop before a massive canvas, her expression rapt. Jason moved closer, crouched beside her. "What do you see?" "Everything," Hazel whispered. "Every color and feeling and moment. It's like the whole world in one painting. Can you create something like that?" "Maybe someday. When I'm better." She looked at Jason seriously. "Will you come to my first gallery show? When I'm grown up and good enough?" Jason's throat tightened. "I'll be at every show. First one, last one, everything in between. Promise." "Promise." They got lunch at a casual restaurant, the four of them crammed into a booth that felt simultaneously awkward and right. Harper ordered confidently. Hazel studied the menu with artistic appreciation for the design. Rosa found herself relaxing incrementally, the day easier than expected. "This is nice," Harper said, surprising everyone. "Doing things together. It's weird but nice." "Weird how?" Jason asked. "Like we're a normal family." "We're not, but we could pretend for today." The statement was matter of fact, no accusation or judgment. Just Harper's characteristically blunt assessment of their situation. "We're our own kind of family," Rosa said gently. "That's okay, too." "Yeah, but normal families don't need supervised visits and lawyers." Harper shrugged. "I'm just saying it's different." "Different isn't bad," Hazel added. "Lots of families are different." They finished lunch, spent the afternoon at a park. Harper found a chessboard and challenged Jason, beating him handily. Hazel sketched them all. Her family, strange and broken and somehow functioning. As the day wound down, exhaustion catching up with everyone, they drove home in comfortable silence. Jason pulled up to their building, helped carry sleepy girls upstairs. "Thank you," Rosa said at the door. "For today. They needed this." "So did I." Jason looked at Harper and Hazel, both dozing on the couch. I know I can't give them back the years I missed, but maybe I can give them good memories moving forward. That's what matters. Moving forward, not dwelling in the past. Jason wanted to say more, to acknowledge what today had felt like, how right it felt to spend time together as something resembling a unit. But Rosa's careful expression warned him against pushing. "Same time next week for visitation," he asked instead. "They'll be ready." He left and Rosa closed the door, leaning against it with eyes closed. Today had been good, too good. The ease between them felt dangerous, like forgetting why she'd needed distance in the first place. Harper stirred, mumbled sleepily, "That was the best birthday." Rosa's heart clenched. Her daughter, getting pieces of the life she deserved. Not perfect, not traditional, but whole enough. Over subsequent weeks, Jason's consistency continued. He showed up engaged, followed through on promises. He remembered details, Harper's debate competition schedule, Hazel's preferred art supplies, Rosa's work hours, so he didn't call during shifts. He wasn't trying to replace Rosa or become more important. He was just there, present, reliable. Rosa found herself trusting him incrementally, not with her heart that was still locked away, but with their daughter's well-being. She could leave them with him without panic, could make plans knowing he'd handle logistics competently. One evening, Rosa's car finally died completely. No amount of prayer or mechanical skill could resurrect it. She stood in the parking lot, defeated, calculating how she'd afford another vehicle. Jason offered immediately, "Let me help. A car, a loan, whatever you need." "No. Rosa, you need transportation. Let me—" I said no. Her voice was sharp with old defensiveness. "Fine, but at least let me drive you to work until you figure something out. For the girls, so they're not disrupted." Rosa wanted to refuse, but practicality won over pride. "Just until I handle it myself." "Just until then," Jason agreed. He drove her to work for 2 weeks, picking her up after shifts, never commenting on her exhaustion or the late hours. He didn't try to fix it, didn't offer money, just provided transportation as agreed. Rosa eventually bought another aging vehicle with borrowed money from Betty and her own meager savings. It wasn't ideal, but it was hers. "Thank you for the rides," she told Jason. "You didn't have to." "Yes, I did. You're the mother of my children. Helping you helps them." The statement was practical, not emotional, but something in his tone suggested more, that helping her mattered to him independent of their daughters. Rosa didn't examine that. Thought too closely. Harper and Hazel's school hosted a parent conference. Rosa went alone as always, prepared to hear about their progress and challenges. Jason appeared in the hallway, unexpected. "The school called. Said both parents were invited. You didn't have to come. I wanted to. They're my daughters. I want to know how they're doing." They sat together meeting with teachers, hearing about Harper's academic excellence and occasional argumentativeness, about Hazel's artistic talent and tendency to disappear into her own world. Both girls were thriving, the teachers said. Credit to excellent parenting. The teachers looked at Rosa and Jason as a unit, assuming partnership. Neither corrected them. Afterward, walking to the parking lot, Jason said, "They're amazing. You raised amazing humans." "We're not done raising them yet," Rosa responded. "Lots of years ahead. I want to be here for those years. Not on the sidelines, but actually present." "You're doing that. Slowly, but you're doing it." They stood by their separate cars, a moment of understanding passing between them. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, but something like partnership in the shared project of raising Harper and Hazel. "Good night, Rosa." "Good night." Rosa drove home, thinking about how complicated life had become. Jason was in their lives now, not as the villain she'd constructed, but as someone flawed and trying, someone her daughters were beginning to care about. She didn't know what that meant for any of them, but for now it meant they were managing, building something functional from broken pieces that would have to be enough. Chapter 10. The Reckoning. The school's annual presentation night drew parents from every corner of the community. filling the auditorium with anxious energy and proud faces. Harper's debate team was showcasing their skills, and Hazel's artwork was displayed in the lobby, both girls representing different kinds of excellence. Rosa arrived early, as always, dressed in her best professional clothes that still showed their age. She found seats in the middle section, save 2 for Betty and Lily, who'd both insisted on attending. Jason appeared minutes later, scanning the crowd before spotting them. He made his way over, and Rosa noticed the subtle shift in people's attention, the way wealth commanded notice even when trying to blend in. "Room for one more?" Jason asked. Rosa nodded to the empty seat beside her. They'd agreed to come together, present as unified parents, even if their relationship remained undefined and complicated. The presentations began. Harper's team took the stage, arguing about environmental policy with practiced precision. Harper was fierce, dismantling opposing arguments with surgical accuracy, her confidence electric. Rosa watched with the pride of someone who'd raised that child from nothing, who'd encouraged every question and curiosity despite exhaustion. Jason leaned forward, completely absorbed. When Harper landed a particularly devastating rebuttal, he laughed quietly, earning a look from Rosa. "She's something," he whispered. "She gets it from me," Rosa responded, only half joking. No argument there. After the debate, they moved to the art gallery, where Hazel's work hung alongside other students. Her pieces were unmistakable, emotionally complex, technically skilled beyond her years. The centerpiece was a portrait series of their family. Rosa at the kitchen table, Harper mid-argument, Jason looking uncertain, and Betty laughing. Separate frames that somehow formed a cohesive whole. "She sees everything," Jason said, studying the portraits. "Always has," Rosa agreed. "It's her gift and her curse." They mingled awkwardly, Rosa fielding questions from other parents about Jason's sudden presence. She kept explanations minimal. "He's their father, yes. He's involved now. It's complicated." But Mother, someone Rosa had always found vaguely hostile, approached with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Her daughter was in Harper and Hazel's class, a child who'd struggled with their presence in ways the adults pretended not to notice. "So nice to finally meet the father," the woman said, her tone loaded. "Must be quite the adjustment, stepping up after all this time." Rosa felt Jason stiffen beside her. She prepared to deflect, to smooth over the obvious judgment. But Jason spoke first, his voice carrying more weight than volume. "The adjustment has been mine to make. Rosa raised Harper and Hazel beautifully without me. I'm grateful they're letting me be part of their lives now. Still, single motherhood must have been difficult. So many challenges, especially." The woman's pause was deliberate, her eyes sliding over Rosa's face, leaving the racism unspoken but present. Rosa had dealt with this before. The subtle implications that her struggle was somehow inevitable, that she'd brought hardship on herself. She'd learned to smile through it, to protect Harper and Hazel from seeing how often judgment came wrapped in concern. But Jason's expression turned cold. The only challenge was doing it alone when she shouldn't have had to. "Rosa is the strongest person I know. She built a life and raised 2 incredible daughters while working multiple jobs. My absence was the difficulty, nothing else." The woman's smile faltered. Other parents had turned to listen, drawn by the tension. "I just meant—" "I know what you meant," Jason interrupted, his voice level but unmistakable. "And I'm telling you that any judgment about their circumstances should fall on me. I'm the one who failed them." "Rosa never failed anyone." The woman retreated quickly, muttering excuses. Rosa stood frozen, processing what had just happened. "You didn't have to do that," she said quietly. "Yes, I did." Harper and Hazel appeared then, breathless from running through the halls. Harper was still buzzed from her debate performance, talking rapidly about strategy and opponent weaknesses. Hazel glowed quietly, pleased by the attention her artwork had received. "Did you see us?" Harper demanded. "We destroyed them. Complete annihilation. I saw, Jason said. His anger from moments ago completely vanished, replaced by pride. You were brilliant, obviously, Harper grinned. Mom says I argue like it's an Olympic sport. Your mom is right about most things, Jason responded, catching Rosa's eye briefly. They collected coats and belongings, prepared to leave. Outside, the parking lot buzzed with families loading into cars, congratulating children, making plans for celebratory dinners. Rosa's car was parked in the far corner, the usual spot for those who arrived earliest. As they approached, they found another parent standing beside it, waiting. The man was someone Rosa recognized vaguely from previous school events. His daughter and Harper had some kind of academic rivalry. He looked agitated. "Can I help you?" Rosa asked carefully. "You should teach your daughter some humility," the man said without preamble. "Not every debate needs to be a bloodbath. She embarrassed my daughter tonight." Rosa felt Harper tense beside her. Jason moved slightly forward, positioning himself between the man and them. "Harper participated in a debate fairly," Rosa said evenly. "If your daughter felt embarrassed, perhaps she should prepare better." "That's exactly the attitude I'm talking about. You raise them to think they're better than everyone." "That's enough," Jason interrupted, his voice cutting. "You're speaking to their mother disrespectfully. Either apologize or leave, and who are you? The father who finally showed up?" The words were designed to wound. They did, landing precisely on Jason's exposed guilt. But instead of retreating, Jason stepped fully into the space, his presence suddenly overwhelming. "Yes, I'm the father who failed to show up. I own that. But I'm here now, and I'm telling you to back away from my family. My family." The words hung in the air, significant and unexpected. The man seemed to recognize he'd miscalculated. Jason wasn't someone to challenge casually. His quiet authority was undeniable. He left with a muttered comment that might have been an apology. Harper, who'd been silent and tense, exhaled shakily. That was intense. "People are sometimes threatened by excellence," Rosa said, rubbing Harper's shoulder. "You did nothing wrong." He called Dad the father who failed to show up. Harper looked at Jason, something fierce in her expression. "That was mean." "It was also true," Jason said honestly. "I did fail to show up, but I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." Hazel, who'd been watching everything with her quiet intensity, spoke up. "You called us your family." Jason crouched to her eye level. "You are my family, both of you. Your mother, Betty, Lily, this strange, complicated thing we're building together. That's family, even though Mom doesn't love you." Hazel's question was blunt, innocent, devastating. Jason glanced at Rosa, who looked away. "Love isn't always required for family. Respect is, commitment is, showing up is. And I plan to keep showing up." They drove separately to dinner, a restaurant Jason suggested but Rosa approved, their careful negotiation of decisions becoming routine. Over burgers and fries, Harper recounted her debate triumph in excessive detail. Hazel showed them sketches she'd made during the evening. Betty and Lily joined them, filling the booth with warmth and laughter. To any observer, they looked like an extended family, celebrating together. The reality was more complex. Fractured pieces finding ways to fit, history bleeding into present, futures uncertain. But sitting in that booth, watching Harper's animated storytelling and Hazel's quiet joy, Rosa felt something shift. Not forgiveness, not love, not anything easily named. Just recognition that maybe this broken thing they'd created could sustain the weight of their daughters' futures. After dinner, walking to their cars, Jason stopped Rosa with a light touch on her arm. "Thank you," he said simply. "For what?" "For tonight. For letting me be part of this. For raising them to be exactly who they are." Jason's voice dropped. "You were right about everything. About me needing to prove myself, about words being easy. I know I'm still proving it, but I want you to know I see what you did, what you've always done, and it's extraordinary." Rosa felt her throat tighten. "Don't make this into something it's not. I'm just acknowledging truth. You're an incredible mother. They're lucky to have you. I'm lucky you're letting me near them at all." "They deserve a father," Rosa said quietly. Even one who showed up late. Harper and Hazel were already in Rosa's car, watching their parents talk. Hazel sketched the scene. Two people standing under parking lot lights, the space between them filled with unspoken complexity. "Do you think they'll get back together?" Harper asked her twin. "I don't know, maybe, maybe not." Hazel kept drawing. "But they're figuring it out. That's what matters." Rosa and Jason parted with brief goodbyes, driving separate directions towards separate homes. But something had changed tonight. Some fundamental shift in how they existed in relation to each other. At home, Rosa tucked Harper and Hazel into bed, listened to their reflections on the evening. "Dad was pretty cool tonight," Harper admitted reluctantly. "Defending you like that." "He was decent," Rosa agreed. "Do you think you'll ever forgive him?" Hazel asked, her perceptive eyes searching Rosa's face. Rosa considered the question honestly. "I don't know, but I think I'm learning to live with what happened without letting it define everything." "That might be close enough." "Close enough for what?" "For us to move forward, all of us." The girls accepted this, drifting towards sleep. Rosa sat between their beds, watching them breathe. These miraculous humans she'd created and raised and protected. In his penthouse, Jason stood at the window overlooking the city, thinking about family and the many forms it could take. Thinking about two girls who were slowly letting him in, and one woman who probably never would. Thinking about how showing up day after day might eventually add up to something like redemption. His phone buzzed, a message from Rosa. "Thank you for tonight, for defending us. It mattered." Jason stared at the message, typed and deleted several responses, finally settled on, "Always." From now on, always. He didn't know if Rosa believed him. Didn't know if time would prove him worthy of the trust Harper and Hazel were extending. Didn't know what the future held for any of them, but he knew he'd be there to find out. Through debates and art shows, through conflicts and celebrations, through the messy, complicated reality of being parents to two extraordinary girls. That would have to be enough, and maybe, eventually, it would be.